The first punishments have been handed down in, yes, it is from Signgate, not from Burgergate, even though a lot of rival fans want to make you think that you are going crazy because it's gaslighting and all of that. But we have to talk about Jesse Minter and Steve Clinkscale accepting a punishment from the NCAA. I almost said NBA. That's because I watched the NBA last night. We're going to talk about that and a heck of a lot more on this outside episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are finally back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. I'm out here soaking in some sunshine. If you're watching on video, if you're listening, you probably can hear some outside noise. After having had a fever as part of the complication of my cellulitis, it is welcome. But as I was in the middle of resting and trying to get some respite from my illness, something happened, and it was big credit to Trevor McHugh over at Maize and Blue Review. He's the one who found this, that the NCAA had come to separate resolutions with Steve Clinkscale and Jesse Minter. Minter gets a 1-year show cause for impermissible contact with a high school sophomore before July 15th. And then Steve Clinkscale for essentially, from what I was told, giving gear to a former Michigan linebacker, recruit slash signee, however you want to look at it. I'm not going to name names. That some gear was given at a camp. Whatever. He ended up getting a 2-year show cause. Would be suspended 50% of the season of the first year if this was something that was if he was hired within the first of those 2 years. Part of that is due to him supposedly not cooperating fully with the NCAA, which is usually what will get you the not cooperating with the NCAA bit. So, it's ultimately, obviously, it's caused a lot of the rivals who concern troll, right, like to say it's a history of, like, these are the types of, it's absurd, because here's the thing, these are the types of penalties that, I mean, that far exceeds what you normally see, right? Like, these are the types of things where there's really no penalty. It's a school self-reports, and it is what it is. Maybe it's because the NCAA, and this isn't what I believe, but maybe it's because the NCAA decided that it wanted to go out and make an example. Actually, I think that is what I believe. Maybe it's because the NCAA was trying to, essentially, was what I was going to say, it had to find out this information on their own rather than Michigan self-reporting. But instead, I do believe that the NCAA wanted to try to make an example so that it can appear tough and harsh and everything, given everything that's all of the public spectacle of this investigation and what have you. But yes, this is a part of Signgate. This is not a part of Burgergate. Burgergate is closed. It has been closed for like 8-9 months at this point, right? That's been done. The penalties had been handed down on that forever ago. Jim Harbaugh got a 4-year show cause. Again, real tough stance by the NCAA. I'll get to that in a second, but ultimately, yes, this was part of Signgate because this was part of what they had discovered. And this is why no school wants the NCAA really snooping around, right? This is why they don't want to suddenly be under the microscope where they're just going and looking through all of your files and looking through all of your text messages, because they can find other things that they determine and deem to be violations that they hadn't found before, right? That's what happened here, right? That's why you only see such little Connor Stallions in the NOA and a lot of other things. And as much as rival fans want to make it into, well, you know, that's just the cheating culture and whatever, like, every school has some element of this. Every one of them. You just don't usually hear about it because the school self-reports the NCAA and goes, you doing what you do. You keep doing what you do. It's the, type of thing. And Michigan, in this case, did not do that because they discovered some things that were otherwise looked at as essentially inconsequential, right? So, yeah, that's number one. Number two is it is inconsequential because they are basically suspending 2 coaches for so long as they are not in the NCAA. Now, a show cause isn't a suspension; it's just a pain in the rear end, right? But you can coach. You can get hired as a coach as a show cause. It just puts that school under further NCAA scrutiny, right? Like Michigan could hire Connor Stallions right now. If he could be under a 20-year show cause, it would just mean that every 6 months or so, Michigan would have to meet up with the NCAA. It's essentially like a probationary period. There's no legal anything that has to do with that. But really what's happening here is they're like, you are not involved, aside from Steve Clinkscale, who would have to have his 6 games in the first half of this upcoming season, right? If he ended up saying, you know what, Los Angeles Chargers, NFL, you've been great to me. I enjoyed my 1 year here, but my heart, is in working 10 times harder. My heart is in really corralling a bunch of teenagers, and I would like to go and be a defensive coordinator at Western Kentucky rather than having this primo job. Jesse Minter, 1 year. Oh, okay. I mean, he's not going back to college this year. Steve Clinkscale in the next 2 years is not going back to college, barring some kind of absolute catastrophe, a.k.a. scandal. So it's a way for the NCAA to kind of look tough without actually being tough, right? To the Jim Harbaugh show cause, what did he sign with the Chargers? A 4-year contract, and he gets a 4-year show cause. Okay. It doesn't. It's like, all right, chances of Jim Harbaugh coaching in college again are pretty slim. So expect that when it comes to, and I'm watching Zuri get stuck around plants. It's always fun. When it comes to, ADD brain here. When it comes to that, it's like Jim Harbaugh isn't going to coach again at Michigan, obviously, at least, not unless it's like an advisory type of role. But it really is just like they can punish him all they want, the NCAA, because these chances of him not coaching at Michigan or any other NCAA school is quite high. He's been an NFL commodity, and with what you saw last year, that's continued, right? Like he's turning around the Chargers. So this poor dog is stuck over here. I love watching dogs get stuck, by the way. It's cute. It's like they just don't understand the consequences of their actions when it comes to leashes and leads, like Zuri's on a lead right now. Anyhow, so my ultimate thoughts is it's much ado about nothing. And could these guys have fought it, right? Because is there like the lack of proof, at least in the Clinkscale case? I don't know. I think that one feels like it could be a little bit more, but it's like, okay, you say I can't basically work there for the next 2 years when I'm not going to work there. Who cares, right? Ultimately. So we'll see what that means for the greater thing. I think you'll see them come down on Harbaugh specifically. We'll see about Connor if that ends up happening, if they come down hard on him. I've heard some mixed things from a couple different people as far as the expectations there. As far as the hammer that the rival fans want to come down, again, no, neither I nor anyone who talks to people who would actually know anything has heard anything that is remotely resembling what rival fans are hoping for. So they, unless do they have different sources? It's certainly possible. Certainly possible, because they knew a lot of things before we knew them last year, or 2 years ago rather. But nonetheless, it does not seem like they're going to get what they want. Will it be harsher than what Michigan fans are comfortable with? It's possible. It's absolutely possible, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be anything that like vacation and wins, bowl bans, no more national championship, asterisks. None of those things are happening. If they do, I will come here and I will say I'm sorry to you personally. But as far as everything I've heard, that is just not the case. So I would expect it to be more punitive on the guys that aren't going to be around, because it allows the NCAA to look like it's got teeth when it doesn't. That's it. That's really it. All right, well, I'm going to continue to watch Zuri struggle around over here, doing her own deal. We're going to continue on. We've got some more stuff to talk about, and we're going to do so here in just a moment. But before we do, ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, my sense of track here is gone. I was like, I had a full plan as I sat down outside. I don't have my normal notes in front of me. I just have my Monarch Money, what have you. This is show 1 of 2 today. Obviously the promise and the plan was to get stuff done, to really, bulk up this week. But then Monday, as I was doing the first show, I think I even said, this is the only show we're doing today after the plan was doing 2. I sat down with the plan to do 2, and then I started being like, I'm not feeling so hot. Next thing I knew, I had a 100+ degree fever for the 2 days. We'll come out of that. So the second show today, we're going to have Jake Butt on to talk about the spring game. That's why I still have my phone in my hands, because he just texted me to let me know that he's ready essentially whenever I am, barring something happening between now and then. That's where we're going to go. Just trying to see where it was. Okay, here's the other thing. Okay, I got it now. We're going to move the camera slightly since I keep on leaning back and changing my framing here. New camera, too, by the way, for those. This is a new video camera that Canon released this week. The EOS RV, in case that's something that you're interested in. If you like this, I'm using the kit lens, just testing it out with for the first time here. All right, so let's get into the next topic here, which is you've got a couple too early post-spring top 25s that have come out. And you have USA Today, the mothership for me, has Michigan at number 15, and then you got number 17, Andy Staples, our friend. He's been on the show here before, not once since he's been at On 3, but he's been on the show. He has Michigan at 17, and both kind of have caveats. More so forcefully from Staples when he says that if Michigan has just basically he says above average, but I'd go as far as just to say functional. Michigan has a functional offense. Then 17 is far too low. USA Today says more like, hey, if the offense is good with Bryce Underwood or whoever ends up being the quarterback, there are a little bit more caveats. 15 feels like the deal. So I think that's a fair place, right? Especially for, national outlets. They're not looking at teams like, you might, as a Michigan fan, if you were watching this or listening to this, and you've been following along all spring, and you watched the spring game, you saw what Bryce's capability is. You might have some questions about the wide receiving core, which I would say is fair. You might have some questions about the offensive line, which I would actually probably argue against, based off of you look at the personnel directly. We've talked about that a bit, but I would look at it and I would say, okay, if that defense is as good as it looks like it can be or should be, then that should be one of the best defenses in the country. If the offense can get back to playing complementary football, if this new punter from Mizzou can actually boom it, and Dominic Zavada continues to be Dominic Zavada, you've got 3 phases of this team that look absolutely like they are in a great potential situation. And I'm gonna keep on saying this, just mostly because I see things out there in the Twitter sphere and articles from colleagues, articles from national people, and it's like they look at it and say oh yeah, I look at this and I see it as a 9-3, and I'm like, I just want to know who are the 3 teams, because you got to look at the schedule too. I don't feel like that's happening, right? I understand there's a an idea, like if they played last year's schedule, yeah, I'd probably say 9-3 is what they were going to go, right? Like I would sit there and look at it and say, I know I had them winning against Texas and then was wrong. And then after that, we kind of adjusted and said, I don't really expect them to win a heck of a lot after that. I'll say this, amongst my colleagues, I was one of the most pessimistic for the longest last year. Like other colleagues are like, no, they'll end up being fine. And I'm like, I think this is a team that maybe doesn't make a bowl game. I don't know if I said that on the show. I hope I did. I was certainly very concerned. But I think the other part of it is that you looked at some of those teams, Texas and Oregon, and I mean, even just preseason, USC and Washington, and Indiana ended up being really good, and then Ohio State. Yeah, that felt like a year where things weren't going to go very well. Now you look at this upcoming schedule, and you look at those teams that are ranked in some of these two early top 25s. I mean, you have. I don't know that I've seen Indiana in either of them, but like Illinois is, and that's a team Michigan lost to. Texas is ranked pretty high. That's a team that Michigan lost to. Oregon's ranked pretty high. That's a team Michigan lost to. So like a lot of the teams that Michigan lost to last year aren't on the schedule. So that just leaves you with Oklahoma, who in the USA Today one is ranked 25th in the country. Nebraska, who's ranked 22nd in their two early rankings. That leaves you a lot of like, okay, we don't know what those teams are going to be, but if Michigan's defense looks as good as it did in the spring game and they're able to put up some kind of functional offense. Now, I would have loved it if those games were more backloaded, but at the same time, you're getting, it's probably a little bit more dangerous with Nebraska because there's a little bit more familiarity with Dylan Raiola and the offensive system and some of those things. Dana Holgerson, I believe, is there now, and so like I think he came late last year. Memory serves, maybe he's fully new. I don't remember exactly, but still, there's more acclimation there than John Mateer going to Oklahoma. So I think that if you look at that, look at the schedule, and just think about what Michigan actually has going for it. Right now, defensively looks good. I have some concerns on the back end, more so depth-wise, but I definitely have some concerns there. But it looked great in the spring game. Again, though, who were they going up against? That's kind of my argument for the offensive line. Why am I not as concerned about the offensive line watching the spring game? Number one, the individual players that I was watching, Evan Link, I didn't really see Evan Link make any like massive mistakes in the spring game. Right? Like there's no point in which I was sitting there watching him and been like, oh, like the same way that I was last year. And who's he playing against? We think maybe the best defensive front in the country. Okay. Or at least a top 5, top 10 group. So, okay, he's doing that against them. He played great against Alabama. Played great against Ohio State. What are we talking about here as far as that's concerned? You want to tell me that Ben Roebuck got abused by Rayshaun Benny? Okay, is that a concern? No, he's not. Ben Roebuck probably, if he's ended up playing this year, something went probably horribly wrong given the depth ahead of him. But the same thing can be said, like the corners, hey, they looked really good in this game. Like Jeremiah Lowe, one of the players of the game, but who was he playing against? I mean, we don't know that these wide receivers are that great. Outside of Donovan McCulley, who's had actually some success thus far. So that kind of is, I think, the good way to kind of look at it too, right? Like mediocre player looking great against someone who has not shown us anything yet to this point. Okay, then that we have to kind of take that really good performance with a grain of salt. Hence, looking back at Peyton O'Leary, Benjamin Hall, Breon Ishmael highlights from the spring game, and saying like, okay, that's a be-all end-all. But otherwise, I mean, if you're looking and you're like, okay, the defense on both sides, the maize and the blue team, were really good. And yet we saw these guys, offensive line. We saw the players that will play in games do well. That tells you a different story. I was going to do something different in segment 3. We're going to keep on this line of thinking since I've kind of extrapolated from here. So we will do that here in just a moment. All right, we're sitting still outside in beautiful Fenton, Michigan a rocking chair out in front of my house, and very little rocking going on, but now we're doing it, now that I remember that I have this here. So looking back, and this is maybe some of the stuff that we'll talk to Jake about in show number 2, but I really do feel like it is important to understand, like, who are you seeing a guy going up against? Because if you're seeing like Evan Link struggled against Derek Moore, which, I mean, they're on the same team, so it didn't go that way. But if, like, that's the way you were looking at it, and then it's like, okay, well, I will take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because, Derek Moore is considered to be maybe the best player on Michigan's defense as of current. So, okay, fine, fair. Now, if it's like, man, Evan Link really struggled against, I don't know, Devin Baxter, who we've heard some good things about as he enters year 2, but haven't really gotten anything solid from that, then it becomes another issue entirely. And this brings to the point of something we've talked about a bit on this show, and it's something that we've talked about, I've heard former Michigan players talk about, and even current ones more recently, is that practice is that, like, Jamie Morris, JMO, used to always tell me about how much more difficult practice was than games. And, so that you get into a game and it's like, oh, this is easy compared to what we were doing all week. And we're starting to hear more of the players say that type of thing. Now, it didn't pay dividends last year, I mean, because there was a lot of stuff that was kind of off. But this year, I think it absolutely could. And then you have to sit there and look and say, with that Michigan offensive line, is Evan Link going to see better tackles than he went up against? I'm thinking of the Mays team. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I don't know that they had the better end of the tackles. TJ Guy was on that, right? But, like, is he, are some of these guys going to see, better tackles against Nebraska or Oklahoma? Right now, Ohio State, I mean, they've got Bo Atkinson, but that's it, right? Like, as far as guys that you look at and you're like, okay, that might be a problem. But otherwise, like, you look across the board, and that's where you have to start kind of thinking about the pairings and the matchups, right? Like, that's where it's like, okay, with the front that they have, they should be really, really good at stopping the run. Well, you've got certain teams that are going to more so try to run the football, and others that are going to try to pass, right? Like, you look at the secondary for Michigan and say, all right, those guys got to be ready by weeks 2 and 4 for sure, because you're going to see more of a passing attack. You're probably going to see more of a passing attack from Michigan State and Purdue and probably Maryland, considering that tends to be Loxley and Gaddis's MO. But, I don't really know any other players now that Ty Felton and some of those other guys are gone, and obviously Ohio State. So you have to think of it in kind of terms of what the matchups are, on top of how the team looks. Because if Michigan's weakness is another team's strength, then that's a problem. But if Michigan's weakness is another team's weakness, it's not quite so much. Same thing, strength to strength. And I think the good news is that there are very few teams that are on the schedule that are very well balanced between offense, defense, let alone special teams. So you have that a little bit of a dichotomy. And then you don't have a lot of teams that are good at running and throwing the football. So if that ends up being the case, if Michigan can throw the football and Bryce Underwood ends up being just a modicum of what we think he can be in his Michigan career, then they're in a really, really good spot. So I just look at it that way, and I just think that there's a lot to like about with this team. When you mix all of these different aspects together, the schedule, and Zuri got unstuck by breaking all my flowers. Good job, Zuri. You think about the schedule, you think about the personnel groupings and who they're going to have to face in the season, when they have to face them in the season. Like, if there are some pass offense or defense issues, can they have those resolved by the time that they face Ohio State? Those are the types of things that you just kind of look at. And it's kind of like what happened last year, right? Like, no one was sitting there looking at Texas and heck, even Oregon relatively late in the season, same month as the Ohio State game, and saying like, yep, pass defense is going to do really good against the Buckeyes. But they figured it out by then. So that's kind of the good thing. And that kind of brings me to my last point is Michigan has become a team in the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years in particular, that does something that my best friend Doug used to always say that he was envious about other teams. Particularly Ohio State. He'd say, you look at Ohio State, and it's like the version of them that you see in week 1 is so far different than the version you see by the time they play Michigan. It's like they are their best selves by the end of the season, whereas Michigan always started out really hot in the non-conference. They beat an overrated Notre Dame team, and then before you know it, like they're limping into the Ohio State game, not looking at anything worthwhile, right? Especially in like the end of the Lloyd Carr era, the entirety of the Rich Rod and the Brady Hoke years. So I think that Michigan's kind of become more so that now. The unfortunate thing is Ohio State is still kind of that, just not in the final week in November. Anyway, that's going to do it for us with episode number 1. We got Zuri trying to join us. Let's see if I can get her without knocking over the camera. Nope, that she's going to knock over the camera unless I unhook her. So that's going to do it for us with the episode number 1. We'll be back, assuming all goes to plan, with Jake Butt for another episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.